Welcome everyone. It is absolutely wonderful being back together with all of you for our live stream. As I said the last time that we were together, now especially with everything that's going on in the world with, of course, this coronavirus epidemic that's happening, but then in addition to that, all of the other peripheral things and behind the scenes things that are happening throughout the world. And with the fact that people are stuck at home to a very great degree, many people throughout the world are in isolation, we decided that we are going to try to do this on a weekly basis. That is, I will be appearing here on this live stream, and it usually will be Sundays, but not always. Sometimes it'll be a Saturday, sometimes even a weekday. We'll kind of switch it around because we have people in pretty much every time zone on Earth. So again, we will be trying to do this at least once a week or so. And that's in addition to our regular videos that we will also be releasing of various lectures that I've done, interviews, etc. So again, thank you all very much for being here. And before we start, first, officially, let me say Namaste to all of you. Jaya Shriman Narayana. Jaya Bhagavan Shri Radha Krishna. Sanatana Dharma Jayate. Victory to the eternal natural way. With that, we're going to be doing something a little bit different today from what we have been doing. Again, with the current crisis that's been happening and all of the fear and stress that people have been experiencing. Of course, the main theme of the messages that I've been giving for the last several weeks has been an important one. Do not fear. What Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. He says, Ma Shuchaha, do not fear. And this is a message that, again, I've been repeating as my general theme for the last several weeks. And while it's true, we certainly should continue to not fear, I thought that for this specific live stream, we would change things a little bit, and rather than continuing with the same theme, instead what I wanted to talk about a little bit is practice, spiritual practice, and specifically at home. Again, many of us are homebound now, and against our will somewhat. So that being the case, of course, what I have said to people in the past is, this being the case, rather than seeing this as a negative, rather than seeing this as something that, oh, it's terrible, I'm stuck at home, I can't go to restaurants and concerts, sporting events, etc., rather than seeing this as something negative, rather we should try to see this as something positive. And that is that now, for those of us who we have been inspired, let's say, by Sanatana Dharma, by the path of yoga, meditation, etc., for those of us who haven't actually had much of an opportunity to practice spirituality, well, this is our opportunity. So again, take advantage of this fact that you're at home, you have more time on your hands, etc. Don't play video games, don't watch endless Netflix and things like that. Don't do these things which, while seemingly in a very peripheral, meaningless sort of way, might seem quote-unquote entertaining. Take advantage of this time to positively do things that are going to help you to grow as a person. And that means in every way. That means physically, take care of your health. Even though you're homebound, still do exercise. Make sure that you do exercise. I've been doing exercise. My gym has been closed for a few weeks now, but I do exercise at home. I lift weights specifically and do yoga and other things. Do exercise. Eat right. Eat very well. Eat a vegetarian meals, eat healthy meals composed of salads, etc., vegetables, grains, healthy things. Eat organically when you can. So try to have a healthy diet. Feed your mind, feed your intellect. Read very good philosophical works, both the Vedic works, Vedic scriptures, such books as Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Sutras, etc., Srimad Bhagavatam, Upanishads, but also read other books as well. But then, more than anything, feed your soul spiritually, truly spiritually. And what that means in our tradition, in the Vedic tradition, as is true for many traditions actually, spiritual traditions, but especially in the Vedic tradition, there is no such thing as practicing Sanatana dharma without actually practicing spirituality. So this is something that's very important. What I'm going to be talking about today is first, what it means to actually do spiritual practice. And let me explain what is meant by spiritual practice. In the Vedic tradition, the Sanatana Dharma tradition, practice is yoga. Yoga. Now, when I say yoga, of course, I think my audience is pretty intelligent. I think most people out there understand that when I say yoga, of course, I'm not meaning merely going to some yoga class or just watching a video and simply the physical aspects of yoga, that is doing asanas. No, I'm not speaking merely of this. Rather, when I talk about yoga, of course, yoga in the traditional sense means spiritual practice. That's what yoga is. Yoga is indeed the practice of spirituality in the Vedic tradition. So asanas, that is the physical aspect, those are certainly important, but that is 1/8 of the entire yoga system. There are 8 limbs of yoga, as people know. So when I say we need to begin to practice yoga, what I'm talking about is all the aspects of yoga. And very specifically, meditation. See, meditation is indeed the very heart of yoga itself. It is the essence of yoga. Doesn't matter what aspect of yoga we're speaking of, whether it's philosophically or in practice. With every single aspect of yoga, every aspect is meant to be done in a meditative state of awareness, including even the physical aspects, actually. Even when we're doing the asanas, we are meant to be doing so in a meditative sort of way. For that matter, just as an aside, it's very interesting. I mentioned earlier that I'm a weightlifter. I lift weights very seriously. For myself, even as I'm lifting weights, actually, whether I'm home, whether I'm at the gym, I lift weights in a very meditative sort of way. Even as I'm lifting weights, actually, not always, but my eyes tend to be closed as I'm lifting barbells, dumbbells, etc., and I focus in every way. So thus, the idea of yoga is to make everything that you do into a meditation. But then, that being said, there is very specifically a process of meditation. That is, again, the heart of yoga. And a little bit later, we're going to talk about that, actually. Again, this is going to be a very practical talk. But before we do that, first, I just want to read and comment quickly on 3 different verses from 3 different Vedic scriptures that indeed talk about what is the nature of yoga, that is spiritual practice itself, just to give us more of a foundational idea of what it is that we're doing when we do spiritual practice. So that being the case, let me begin with first, the very first verse, and this is from the Yoga Sutras, the very famous Yoga Sutras, and this is chapter 2, verse 28. And this is Patanjali who is speaking here, and this is what he says. By practice of the limbs of yoga, the impurities dwindle away, and there dawns the light of wisdom, leading to discriminative discernment. Powerful, powerful verse. This is actually one of my favorite verses from the Yoga Sutras, where Patanjali explains the importance of yoga, but then he gives a very nice summation of what is yoga. So quickly, we're going to go through this, because we have 2 other verses that I want to look at. So he says, first of all, by practice of the limbs of yoga, and again, I mentioned that there are 8 limbs of yoga: yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Those are the 8 limbs of yoga. And I won't give the translation, because this will be your homework. Go find the translations yourself, look them up, and familiarize yourself with these 8 limbs of yoga. So these are the 8 limbs. So first he confirms that by the practice of these limbs of yoga, negatively speaking now, the impurities that we have within us dwindle away. What are these impurities? Well, they are many different things. They are fear, they are anger, hatred, unwarranted lust and desire, etc., etc. So many different things that are there within us that we know are faults that are there within our psyche, that we wish to transcend, that we wish to rid ourselves of, so that we ourselves can become peaceful, good, happy, wonderful people. Well, Patanjali here says, by practicing yoga, true yoga, in the spiritual sense, these impurities dwindle away. They disappear into nothingness. That's the first thing. But then positively. And there dawns the light of wisdom. Positively, what happens when we practice yoga is indeed this light appears. And it's not literally a light. It is the light of wisdom. Because wisdom itself is like a light. If you're in darkness, you can't see. You need light. Well, when you have wisdom, wisdom is that self-effulgent phenomenon that lights everything around us, and now finally we can see. We can see in every way, not just literally, but figuratively, spiritually, intellectually, philosophically. We can see who we truly are, what is the nature of this world around us, what is the nature of the absolute, of God, etc. So this also happens, and this leading to discriminative discernment. In other words, now having practiced yoga, meditation, the 8 limbs, etc., now we can think clearly, with absolute clarity, without illusion. Now finally we can discern what is true, what is not true, what is real, what is unreal, what is truth and what is a lie. Now we finally have the ability to see and to not be a slave of anything or anyone around us. So this is what Patanjali is saying here. Now let's go on to the next verse that I want to discuss. And this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. For those of you who have not picked up on this yet, yes, the Srimad Bhagavatam is one of my favorite of the Vedic scriptures for many, many reasons. But this is a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's Canto 11, Chapter 23, verse 60. And this is very specifically Krishna speaking about himself. He is speaking to Uddhava, who is one of his devotees. And in fact, this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam is even called the Uddhava Gita, because it's similar to the Bhagavad Gita in that Krishna is teaching. Krishna himself is teaching. See, it's one thing to have a good teacher in general. If you're in school, in high school, in college, a professor, etc. It's one thing to have a great teacher. It's an infinitely better thing to have a spiritual teacher, someone who is an enlightened person who can teach you, who is in human form. But imagine God being our teacher. Well, what do we have here? We have Krishna himself, who is the avatar, who is literally the incarnation of God, who is here speaking to us. And let me read what he says. So, Sri Krishna said, "My dear Uddhava, fixing your intelligence in me, you should thus completely control the mind. This is the essence of the science of yoga." So this is what Krishna says here. This is what Krishna says, is that he goes a little bit deeper, and indeed he confirms what I was saying earlier. And that is, in fact, let's start with the very last sentence of this verse. This is the essence of the science of yoga, what he said previously. So in other words, he's talking about the heart of yoga. He's talking about what I called before, the very heart of yoga itself. He calls it the essence. Now, what is that essence? It's meditation. It's meditation. Because again, let's go through the rest of this. Sri Krishna said, "My dear Uddhava, fixing your intelligence in me, you should thus completely control the mind." This is indeed meditation. This is how we do meditation, is by fixing our intelligence, that is, having a focal point, having a point of dharana, of concentration, and focusing all of our awareness on that point and that one point alone. That's meditation in a nutshell, in essence. But more than this, what does Krishna say here? You see, again, for New Age folk who in some cases, very innocently, in some cases, very deceptively, the ones who are New Age leaders and so-called teachers, they will make this statement that I've heard, unfortunately, for 40, 50 years now. Oh, you can meditate on anything. Just choose your own object. Doesn't matter. This is what they always repeat. It doesn't matter what it is. Pick an object. Just take anything. Take a pen, take something, take whatever you want and meditate upon it, and the result will be the same. That's a lie. That is incorrect. Even intuitively, we know that's not the case. We know that that is not the case. It's akin to saying, I have an illness. Let me go into a pharmacy and just take the first drug I see and take it. Oh, it will cure me. No, It may. It's possible. You may be very fortunate and lucky that just due to good fortune on your part, you happen to pick the one out of thousands of things there your cure, but most likely not. These things are all different. Drugs are all different, pharmaceuticals are all different, etc. Medicines are different. In the same way, and I can give 1,000 other examples like this, of course. Again, it's intuitive. Anyone with intelligence understands that things are not all equal, not all even the same. The object upon which we choose to meditate is crucial. It's everything. So, in spirituality, we need to, before we even embark on this journey, we need to ask ourselves always, what do I really want? I claim I'm a spiritual person. I claim I want some sort of spiritual growth, quote unquote, some sort of spiritual attainment. Well, what exactly, without making it vague, with being very specific, what do I want? And if we come to the conclusion that we want something lower, well, all right, then choose that something lower and pursue that. If you just want fame, if you just want a little bit of peace of mind but nothing more, you don't want to reform yourself as a person. If you think you want some sort of mystical powers that you can impress people with, oh, all right, go for that. That's fine. That's what you want. But if you indeed claim that you are someone who is searching for that which is the summum bonum, to use the Latin, the highest good, if you are seeking that which is indeed the highest, if you claim you want God, then you meditate on God. This is what you meditate on, and this is what Krishna is saying here. Fixing your intelligence on anything? No, he says, in me. You should thus completely control the mind. So thus he is saying, meditate upon me. Krishna is saying this, God is saying this. Meditate upon me, meditate upon God. And thus we will have everything that we seek. So again, beautiful verse, going even more into what is the heart of yoga practice, and that is meditation, and not just meditation, but meditation on the proper object, and that is the supreme personality of Godhead, Bhagavan Sri Krishna, Sriman Narayana. This is what we focus on if we truly want the highest attainment spiritually. Finally, I have one more verse that I want to comment on, and it is from Bhagavad Gita now, chapter 4, verse 42. And you'll see how this is a steady progression. I picked these 3 verses very much on purpose. So now in this verse, Sri Krishna says, with the sword of knowledge, armed with yoga, slay the doubts in the heart, born of ignorance. Stand and fight. This is what Krishna says to Arjuna. Powerful verse, and again, this is one of my favorite verses from Bhagavad Gita now. This is one of my favorite verses. And let's look into this verse just a little bit. And after this, after I finish my commentary, I will certainly take questions. I forgot to mention this in the beginning, but if you're asking questions now, I guarantee I cannot see them. So please wait if you want to ask me questions until afterwards, because I can't see them and comment at the same time. But afterwards, I promise I will be answering questions. Let me read this one more time. With the sword of knowledge, armed with yoga, slay the doubt in the heart, born out of ignorance. Stand and fight. This is what Krishna says. Powerful verse. And why? Well, he is still talking about yoga, interestingly. Again, you'll see that the theme of these 3 verses is yoga, spirituality, meditation, practice, etc. So what does he say? First, he compares knowledge to a sword. Interesting. First of all, what kind of knowledge? Not just any knowledge, not just knowledge of engineering, knowledge of astronomy, etc. These are all important. All knowledge is good. But he means very specifically eternal knowledge. That knowledge which is revealed in the Vedic scriptures, that is revealed through the mouths of great gurus, acharyas, yogis, rishis, etc. And this is the kind of knowledge he's talking about. Knowledge of the nature of wisdom. So with the sword of knowledge, why does he compare knowledge to a sword? Many reasons, actually, too many to actually even go into in full. But several things. First of all, the reason why he compares knowledge to a sword is because knowledge is itself something that is indeed sharp. It's penetrating. It's something that penetrates through the fog. Imagine that we are surrounded by the thickest of fogs, and that fog seems to be endless, and we can't see anything. We can't see any further than maybe 6 inches from our eyes. Well, this is a sword that is penetrating. It penetrates that fog of ignorance and of false ego. So this is why he compares knowledge, this wisdom, to a sword. It's something that cuts away that which is illusory, that which is not of importance. And there are other reasons, but again, I want to keep this short. I've actually given entire talks on this verse that have lasted for an hour, so there's a lot more that can be said, but I'm trying to be brief so we can get to our questions. Next, he says, armed with yoga. Armed with yoga. Why so much martial imagery? Well, first of all, keep in mind he's speaking to Arjuna. He's speaking to a kshatriya. He's speaking to a warrior. Secondarily, he's also speaking to us, of course. So why does he say armed with yoga? Well, yoga is the greatest protection. Yoga is the greatest power that there is. People will try to protect themselves and protect themselves specifically from fear. People will try to accumulate all sorts of different powers with the idea that, again, they can defend themselves, etc. Well, what Krishna is saying here is that yoga is our greatest defense. Against what? Yoga is our greatest defense against, again, all of our problems. Against fear, against hatred, against loneliness, against ignorance, illusion, etc. So he compares yoga itself, again, to a weapon, which is very, very nice, very interesting. So now, having this knowledge, having yoga, what does he say? Slay the doubt in the heart that is born out of ignorance. So, this applies to us today, right now. So many of us right now, in so many ways, we are in doubt. We're in doubt, we're in illusion, we're in confusion, we're, again, in fear about what's happening in the world around us. And it's very sad, it's very unfortunate that, again, for some of us, we're going through a crisis the likes of which we're going through right now, where the news is changing almost hour by hour. And we hear so many rumors about things happening all over the world and how many people are getting this coronavirus here versus there and what's happening in my neighborhood, etc. Well, what begins to happen? We begin to have doubt. We begin to have doubt in ourselves, in our situation, in our well-being. We begin to have doubt as to whether we're even going to survive this worst case scenario. We begin to even have doubt in God. And again, this is something that does indeed happen. We begin to question, oh my God, why is this happening? Where is God right now? Well, Krishna is saying here, don't have doubt. How do you not have doubt? By practicing this yoga practice of meditation, by acquiring wisdom and true knowledge. And in this way, this doubt that is there in the heart that comes about really due to ignorance is slain and it disappears. And then finally, Krishna says in this verse, 3 powerful words. 3 very powerful words. And as I say this, I want you to understand that Krishna is indeed speaking to you. And he's telling you right now who are listening to this, those who will see the video of this afterwards, many, 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 multiple thousands of people. This is what Krishna is saying to you. Stand and fight. Stand and fight. In other words, don't lose heart. Don't lose heart with whatever is happening around you. If you are stuck at home right now or anything bad that you feel is happening to you right now, stand up. Be courageous. Don't lose heart and fight. Now, what does this mean? Of course, it doesn't mean literally in the martial sense, get out a sword, etc. No, what this means is don't give up. Do what you need to do. Do what you know you must do in order to survive what is happening around you, in order to not only help yourself, but to help others, to help your family. But not only to help your family, to help your neighbors. And not only to help your neighbors, but to help any innocent person who is out there who you are capable of helping. And when I say helping, I mean more than anything, by giving them moral courage, by helping them morally, by helping them spiritually, by giving them hope as well, by taking this message that we're giving to you right now from these ancient Vedic scriptures that are the most ancient scriptures and writing known to humanity, that are filled with so much wisdom. Share this with other people. That's how you fight. That's how you fight fear in our world today. So, this is what Krishna is saying. Now, all that being said, I'm just going to end in this way. Because all this has to do with practice, with spiritual practice, with what's called sadhana in Sanskrit. That is yoga. Yoga itself and meditation are spiritual practice. This is what I would recommend to all people who are listening to me right now and again in the future. Take advantage of this opportunity that you may find yourself now isolated with very few things to do. Maybe you're even out of a job, and if you are, you have my sympathies. You truly have my sympathies. But again, if you find yourself at home with time on your hands, now do practice. And specifically, this means the yoga practice of meditation. Focus every day your mind upon God in such a way that you fill yourself with His loving presence. Each day, even if it means just for a short time. Of course, again, if you have a lot of time on your hands, the more time, the better. But let's say if even for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever you have, each day begin your day with meditation. That is, very simply, do this practice. That after you've taken a shower, brushed your teeth, you're all clean, etc. I even tell people, eat first, have your breakfast first, because you want to be comfortable. Don't overeat, don't have a very full belly, just so that you're not worried about anything, you feel good. Then sit in a comfortable position, but with a straight back. Close your eyes, listen to your breath for just 1 or 2 minutes. Again, it's up to you, however long you can. But then begin to meditate upon the divine and sacred names of God that are found in the Vedic scriptures. There are so many names of God in the Vedic scriptures, and so many authentic revealed mantras that are there. And again, there are many, but the one that I would recommend to you that is very easy and is found all throughout the Vedic scriptures, including the Srimad Bhagavatam, Upanishads, and many other places, is very simply Aum Namo Narayanaya. With your eyes closed, having first focused on your breath a little bit, begin to say this mantra to yourself. Say it out loud. Say it however loud or quietly you want, and with whatever speed you want. That's all individual. That's up to you. I have my own way of saying the mantra. In fact, I don't even say it out loud. I say it internally in my mind. But for you, I would say, please say it out loud. And for maybe 20 minutes, half an hour, again, however long you can, just repeat this mantra, which is the name of God. It is saying, I offer my respectful obeisances unto that Absolute who is the sustainer of all beings. That's what this mantra is saying. And the name of God in the mantra is Narayana. So very simply, begin to repeat this mantra, focusing all of your awareness on the sound of the mantra. Aum Namo Narayanaya, Aum Namo Narayanaya. Continue to repeat that and repeat that. Aum Namo Narayanaya, Aum Namo Narayanaya. And like that, continue and continue for as long as you can. Then the way that you end this meditation is again by silence. You have your eyes closed and you're quiet, focusing on the breath and allowing the healing reverberations of the name of God to just enter deeper and deeper within you. So this is the most basic of meditation that I teach, that the International Sanatana Dharma Society teaches. That's our primary meditation. It is the most ancient meditation on earth, actually, and I won't go into the history of it now, but it goes back extremely far back in history. So try this practice each and every day. And again, make this isolation a blessing for yourself by doing spiritual practice. If you don't have an altar in your home, please set one up. And that's very easy. Just find a nice, clean, wonderful area in your home. Have either some statues or beautiful images of God. That means images of Krishna or of Rama or of Lakshmi Narayana. But set up these images, and each day just offer in a very simple way, in your own way, a little bit of incense. Do that. That's called puja. That's worshiping God. Do that first, I would say, and then sit and do your meditation. And there's so much more to be said as far as spiritual practice. But we'll save that for the future, because at this point I want to turn to some questions. So again, if you would like to ask some questions, this is the time to do it. If you asked questions previously, sadly I won't see them. So again, if you have actual questions, then this is the time. I like this one comment. I'm just going to say something about this. The Dunedain will come out of the shadows to reclaim what is theirs. Indeed. And for those who don't quite understand what is meant by that, read Lord of the Rings and you'll understand. But yes, indeed. Very good. Very good. Let me answer this question. Sri Varadarajan asks this. Hare Krishna. Why do human morality and strength decrease through the yugas? Why not the opposite? Is it just human nature to forget these good ideals and values? Very good. Good question. This is a question dealing very specific yugas. And before I answer this question itself, let me first explain, because of course we always have to keep in mind that there are people who come who may not necessarily know a lot of this terminology, etc. So the idea of Vedic history is something that's very different from how history in the post-Abrahamic West is viewed. And that is, history is seen in terms of cycles. There are 4 eras, 4 ages that our world goes through again and again. These are called yugas, or ages. And there are 4 of them very specifically. Right now we are in what is called the Kali Yuga. And this is the 4th of these 4 ages. And interestingly, it has been taught not just in Vedic scriptures, but actually by all the ancients. This is something that people unfortunately often overlook, and that is, this is not something that's taught just in Sanatana Dharma, in the Vedic tradition. Literally, all of the ancients, in one way or another, with just little variations, taught this same idea that I'm about to explain. And that is that there are several ages that people go through. Most people in the ancient past said 4, some say 5. That's fine, it doesn't matter. But one thing they absolutely agree on is the idea that, unfortunately, with each proceeding age, humanity degenerates. Morally, spiritually, intellectually, etc. So this is what he is asking about. Why do human morality and strength decrease through the yugas? Why not the opposite? Is it just human nature to forget these good ideals and values? First of all, that certainly is part of it. That is part of it. The idea that memory is something that decreases as well. But more than anything, it is the nature of our world, unfortunately, that everything eventually degenerates. We say that with all materiality. You can point to anything. You can have a material object, and it looks so strong and solid right now. But the truth of the matter is, it's disintegrating before our eyes. It's just that our eyes can't pick it up. Eventually this won't be here. It's over time, over years, going to get weaker and weaker until eventually it gets to the point where you'll touch it and it'll break. That's true for everything that is within the material world. Nothing lasts forever. And there is this enervating process by which things slowly break down. Well, this is the case, we know, for all materiality, certainly, everything around us, our own bodies. But this is also true as far as historical cycles as well. So it is indeed the case that to maintain goodness is the most difficult thing in the world. You see, people have noted this. To destroy is easy. To create is hard. And to maintain is the hardest thing of all. So thus there are three processes. There is creation, there is maintenance, and then there is destruction. Well, to create, let's say, a civilization, for any individual who has looked at the history of the civilizational process, of how civilizations come about, we know that to create a civilization is not easy. It takes enormous work and brilliance and just so much. But then to maintain that civilization also is extremely difficult. Whereas to destroy, that's something that's easy. Someone can go to a beautiful work of art and in a matter of 60 seconds destroy it. But then if you were to challenge that same fool who destroyed that art, oh, now that you've destroyed it, let me see how easily you can create it. They can't. Or at least not without a lot of effort. So it is the nature of our world that things in our world disintegrate little by little. Little by little, things disintegrate. So that is the nature of what happens in our world. So this is true morally, culturally, etc. as well. So that's a very quick answer to this.